So today we talk about the body, mind, and soul connection. And I've prepared 2 pages that I want to share with you to hopefully give you the idea of at least why I think it's important to combine these 3 modalities in order to help you in your journey, self-love journey, career journey, whatever you're set out to achieve. I believe that this combination will get you there faster and with less resilience. And I want to explain to you why I think it's so important for you to use these 3 modalities. And to start off, I want to start to explain what is mind. So with the mind here in this lecture, when I talk about the mind, I talk about your consciousness. And with your consciousness, that's where you can interfere. That's when you have a bit of control, not a lot, but you still have control. And to better show you what I mean, I got my whiteboard here to help you hopefully envision what it means when I talk about the mind. So the mind, let's put it here. These are your thoughts. No? So we have it's a horrible writing, but you get my point. It's the thoughts. So your thoughts, they come, they go. You can't control what thought is coming, but you get control over what you do with it. Now, what happens next is that your thoughts create a feeling. So we have the feeling. And when I talk about feeling, what I'm talking about is the interpretation that you do. Meaning, when you say, I feel overwhelmed, I feel sad, I feel exhausted, that's an interpretation that comes filtered through your thoughts. And with your thoughts, that filter system that entails all your worries, your hopes, your beliefs, your identity, because your identity is just a belief you have about yourself. And that's all in this filter machine. Yeah. Here's the filter. Everything you see, everything you experience comes through that filter, creates a thought, and from your thought, you create a feeling. You name your experience. That's the interpretation. And you can still choose that. That's why it's conscious. And from your feeling, let's put it here, because we're humans, we're acting on our feelings. No? When we feel angry, that's how we act. So here comes the action, and then comes the result. So you have the thoughts, your thoughts create the feeling, your feeling creates your action, and your action creates your results. That's how this loop works. So when I talk about the mind, this is what I'm talking about from this point onwards, that you can influence what happens after. You can't influence what thoughts come in, they come, but you can acknowledge those thoughts. You can become aware of those thoughts, and then you can change those thoughts. So this is what we mean when we talk about the mind. Now, the body is here. That's your emotions, the body feeling. That's what's happening in your body. That can be pain, that can be pressure, tension, butterflies. It's all happening in your body, and that's our emotions. So emotions and feelings, not the same. I know they often get used interchangeably, but there's a difference. But it doesn't matter. Just for you today, so you know, here we're talking about emotions when we talk about our body. We talk about you listening to your body, and you might not even notice that your body is talking to you. I have that very often with my clients when I ask them this question, how does it feel in your body? And they say, nothing. because they're very up in their head. Everything that happens here gets filtered through here, and then they try to solve it within here, even though it's happening down here. Yeah? So this is the mind, this is the body, what's going on in your body. And then the next part is the soul. And you probably know we talk about energy and vibration, because everything is energy. Everything within us, our soul, it's energy. And every energy particle vibrates on a particular frequency. And when that vibration is off balance, when that particle is off balance, it vibrates on a different frequency. Might not make much sense now, but it will make sense later. At the end of this lecture, it will make a lot of sense to you. I promise you that. So now we have defined the mind, the body, and the soul. This is what we're talking about. These are the concepts, the modalities that we're talking about here. Now let's see how they work together. So I put together here a couple of rough examples, or like umbrella examples. So just that you get an idea, and then I will go into a more specific example. So for example, you have positive thoughts or optimistic thoughts. There's a slight difference, I'm not going into detail, but what we're talking about is that you see opportunities and growth potential in whatever happens, even if it's something that you would classify as bad experience. Yeah? You can still see, oh, there's learning. So that's an optimistic thought, or some would put it in the positive thinking thought. And these thoughts uplift your vibration. Yeah, because you do it here and everything is connected, so it uplifts your vibration, and you might even feel more energetic physically. But when the emotion, the body feeling, is kept in a deficit, in that trauma state, it doesn't last long. That uplifting doesn't last long, because what you do is you try to regulate something in here that is caused by here. So you try to regulate something in your mind that is caused by your body, by your emotion, and everything goes with it for a short time, but it doesn't last. So that's why we just focus on the mindset. It helps, definitely, it helps, but it doesn't last long if you don't take the other modalities in, because everything is working together. So a different idea is you have the frequency, you do frequency or energy work. Me, I'm a Reiki practitioner and sound healing practitioner, also a life coach. So I combine this all. But let's say you do some energy work and you balance out the unbalanced chakras, or there is a blockage somewhere here in your body and you balance it out, you let it go, you release the blockage. Perfect, amazing. But then kicks your brain in and doubts it, or you experience something and you worry. And what happens is the tension comes back. The blockage might block again because maybe you haven't released the emotional trauma. You haven't sit with your emotion. You haven't regulated your emotion. So it will unbalance again. Let's take it from the emotional regulation point of view. So you sit with your emotions, you release these emotions, you release the trauma that's sitting in your body, because that's where the trauma lives, in your body. So you release it, you sit with it, it gets less and less, and you feel amazing. Yeah, now I released it. But what happens is now your nervous system has calmed down. Your nervous system knows it's gone, but your mind hasn't caught up yet. And what happens is, same trigger, the emotion, it's not happening. But your mind then kicks in, and because it knows that trigger and it has learned, oh, when that trigger happens, usually what happens is this emotion, and that we interpret as we are overwhelmed, we are angry, whatever. And then you behave in the same way. And the result is the same. And then you think, why? I released that. Why do I still behave in the same way? And that is because your mind hasn't caught up with, oh, that's different. And you haven't learned to interrupt that process here to say, oh, yeah, here was the emotion. And I just did the interpretation and walked this way because it's an automation now, because you trained it for so long. It's just happening. And you haven't caught yourself like, hold on a second. There's nothing in my body. There's no emotion supporting that interpretation. So let me choose differently. Let me choose a different feeling. Let me choose a different thought. Let me react differently. Because you only focus on the emotional regulation. So I hope now it makes a bit more sense of how these three modalities work together. Oh yeah, and I put down here, and so when you walk this automation through, you wonder, why am I doing this? You probably blame yourself, and blaming automatically gets your vibration down. It's a cycle. So let me give you a more clearer example, and I choose people pleasing because I know many of you might be in that range of a big people pleaser, or maybe a small people pleaser, or maybe a recovering people pleaser. So what happens with the people pleaser? You know that people pleasing is a survival strategy. At one point in your life, you learned that if I please people, may that be with doing more for them, being quieter, supporting them in any way I can, giving myself up, abandoning myself for them so they feel happy. It's a survival strategy. And our body, our mind, we are humans, and therefore our main goal is to survive. So we learn these strategies. We perfectionize these strategies. So people pleasing is a survival strategy. It makes you feel safe. That's why you took it on. That's why you became so good. And that's why you keep it. But now you learned, oh, as a people pleaser, I can't function. It's too much. So I need to do something. And you come across mindset work, and you learn setting boundaries. So you learn to set boundaries, and you do it. And then comes the feeling, the interpretation. And that might be that it feels bad. I feel so bad when I set these boundaries. When I see how people react when I say no, I feel so bad. That's your interpretation. I feel bad. And then you might even go as far and look at your emotion, what's going on in your body. And you notice that there might be pressure on your chest, or there might be tension on your shoulders. There might be a lump in your throat. There might be something happening in your stomach. Whatever it is, something is happening. You say, okay, I set my boundaries. And then what the soul, the energy and vibration does, or what you do, is then you put some sound healing on. You put some frequencies. On YouTube, you find so many like binaural beats and whatever. You put it on, you calm down. But you've done something with the mind, and you think, this is it. And with the feeling bad, you took on the music, vibrations, oh, fine, I'm calmed down, everything is good now. Now I can go to the next boundary. So that's the typical progress. Now I want to introduce you to this combination of body, mind, and soul. So you're still a people pleaser and you set your boundaries. And what happens is your mind is starting spiraling. What if they don't like me? What if they are mad at me? What if they don't talk to me anymore? Have I said it in the right tone? Have I said it good enough? Have I brought it across properly? Can I hold my boundaries? So your mind is spiraling. So what you do now is interesting. Yeah, that's the tool. That's the mindset tool that I want to give you on your way with this example. Interesting. That's how we interrupt here between thoughts and feelings. This is where we interrupt. As soon as we become aware of, oh, we're spiraling, we're in this automation, that's where we interrupt. And it might not happen at that moment of time. That's totally normal. It might happen that you realize that far later in the evening, the next day, the next week, the next month. It doesn't matter. You can go back to that same situation because your brain doesn't understand the difference between reality and imagination. That's why we can rewire it anytime. So you go back into that situation and you go back to that boundary that you set and you go back to that spiraling of your thoughts. You say, interesting. Interesting, without blame, without shame, without judgment. You just accept what is now. You accept you spiraling out of control with your thoughts about having set that boundary. What you do with your body, because it still feels bad, it still feels in your body that I want to get away, I want to explain myself. I feel this pressure, this tension. And what you do there is you sit with that emotion. That's what emotional regulation is. You sit with it and concentrate on that emotion. And I usually tell my clients, if you don't know how long to sit with it, give it a number from 1 to 10. How strong is it at the beginning when you first notice it? Maybe it's a 5, 6. And then you sit with it till you can say, oh, I think it's gone down 1 or 2 to 3 or 4. Just give it a bit of time and release. That's when the release happens. And to support that, you put on, in this case, because people pleasing is a safety, a survival strategy for your safetiness, that's where you feel safe, you put on a sound of 396 hertz. That's the solfeggio frequency for your root chakra. And your root chakra is all about safety and security. So when you put that on, it will help balance your root chakra. It will help you release that fear and helps you to feel safe within yourself again. So we're combining the mind by interrupting through interesting. I'm not going all the way through the feeling, the action, and the result. No, I'm interrupting here. I do the emotional regulation by sitting with that emotion. And I use the sound, the frequency, the vibration to help me release easier and with less resistance. So we're combining these 3 modalities to get where we want faster and with less resilience. That's how they work together beautifully. Now, I also put down, because this is where all of this started with the frequency, with the sound healing and the Reiki, that brought me into this triangle. And it was October last year. And I got this message, do you want to join the 22 days of energy transformation? And I thought, interesting. Yes, let's do that. And I started every day. We got either an energy clearing or we got something to think about. And I listened to all of them, and I've noticed at the end that I have become a people magnet. And now I've never been a people magnet. There were times when I went to parties or to events and no one was talking to me. But then I walked into a room and out of the blue, people just came to me. I didn't have a second by myself because that person was coming and then they might go. The next person was already on their way or they were standing there and wanted to talk to me. So I was like, literally, I felt like a people magnet. Wherever I went, people just came. I was like, wow, this is amazing, interesting. What an interesting experience. But what I've noticed during those 22 days is that many people in the same program that didn't have the knowledge and the tools to combine the mind and the body, which I did because that's what I work with. So I used my tools, my interest in, oh, I'm spiraling. Oh, let me sit with this. I used all of these tools, but they probably didn't have that knowledge. So what I've seen during these 22 days, that so many people doubted themselves, doubted the process, doubted where it would lead them, doubted their experience. So in their mind, they were constantly spiraling, wondering, why is this like this? Why is this like that? And they took that situation and couldn't implement it into a different situation. It was just like secluded. And they were having all of these emotions that they didn't know what to do with them because they didn't have this triangle to say, okay, it's all working together. So let me just use all of these tools to get where I want to go faster and with less resilience. But they resisted because their mind questioned what was happening. It was judging. Why am I like this? Why am I not doing this differently? Why do I feel like I have released, but I'm still acting? Because they didn't know how to interrupt that thought process, not to get the same results. They didn't understand the mechanics of how it works. They didn't know how to regulate their emotions. So they were all over the place, getting that frequency, clearing that vibrational balance. But because the mind and the body was so out of place, didn't know what to do with it, they went straight back. So it becomes that vicious cycle. But when you know how all of this is working together, you can use it for your advantage. Because then you know, like, oh, this is happening. This is what I can do. This is what I could do here. This is how this could support me here. You can pick and choose and make your experience of your path to where you want to get easier. I'm not saying it's easy, and there won't be any interference. Of course they are, because you need to fail in order to succeed. And you need to see what works for you, because not every mindset tool works for everyone. Not every emotional regulation tool works for everyone. The sound healing works for everyone because that's how it works. But nevertheless, you still try, fail, succeed. That's how it works. And that brings me to the end of my lecture today.